Start with the great name of Allah, the most kind and more merciful. Assalamu alaikum. This is Yasir Ali from Department of Computer Science, page 2K80. In this video, I'm going to present a final term presentation of computer architecture. So these are the topics that I will cover in this video. First one is combinational circuit. Second number is sequential circuit. Number third is multiprocessor. And number 4 is buses. So before we go further, let's have overview of what is computer architecture. Computer architecture is a set of rules and methods that describe the functionality, organization, and implementation of computer system. So computer architecture is all about the internal parts of computer, that how it made from, how it made, and what functionality they perform. So topic number 1, that is combinational circuit. So what is combinational circuit? Let's have a definition. Combinational circuit consists of logic gates whose outputs depends on the present input. They have no memory element. So combinational circuit is type of circuit that has no memory involved. Means when you give any input to that circuit, they don't save. They just give output on the present input that you give. So this is the diagram of combinational circuit. It consists on input variables, logic gates, and output variables. As you can see that there have 3 input variables and 3 output variables. So you can see there is no any memory involving where we save our previous output. There is a present 3 input and give us a output upon these inputs. So these are some examples of combinational circuits. Number 1 is adder. So adder could be off or full. Adder is a combinational circuit that performs addition. So if we talk about the half adder, that gets 2 inputs and give us one output to addition them. And if we talk about full adder, that gets 3 input and add them and give us one output. So it is used in an arithmetic logic unit usually. So we have a second combinational circuit, that is subtractor. So it could be half subtractor or full subtractor. It performs the subtraction operation. It can be a half and full, as I said. So half subtractor gets 2 input, whereas full subtractor gets 3 input. So adder and subtractors performs arithmetic operation that is usually used in arithmetic logical unit. Then we have comparators. Comparator is a combinational circuit that compare the values. Let's take some variables. I have taken 2 variables, A and B. A holds 10 values, whereas B holds 20 values. So what subtractor do? It compare A to the B. It checks that A is equal to B or A is not equal to B. A is greater than B, or A is less than B, or A greater equal greater or equal to B, or A less than or equal to B. So best use of comparator is in arithmetic logic unit. When we compare any values, it uses comparators, combinational circuit. Let's move to the next one, that is multiplexer and demultiplexer. Multiplexer accepts many inputs and gives us a one output, whereas demultiplexer gets many, where demultiplexer gets one input and gives us many outputs. Encoder and decoder. So these are two used in memory address to encode and decode to find the memory location. And last one is binary, BCD, and gray code converter. So these are the converters that converts the code from binary to BCD, from binary to gray code, or from BCD to binary, or BCD to gray code. So these all are the examples of combinational circuits. Topic number 2, that is sequential circuit. So what is sequential circuit? Let's have some definitions. Sequential circuit made up of combinational circuits and memory elements. So a sequential circuit is also a combinational circuit. But why we used to call it a sequential circuit? Because it used the memory element. This is why we called it a sequential circuit. So these memory elements are devices capable of storing one bit information. So the memory elements that use sequential circuit can save or hold or store the one bit information. So the best example of that memory elements are the flip-flops that I will tell you in later. Output depends on input and previous state. So as I said earlier, that sequential circuit use the memory element. So whenever we give an input to the sequential circuit, it stores the previous value. And when we give next time input, when we give next input, so it gives us the output upon the previous input and the present input. So these are the examples of sequential circuit. So flip-flops. So flip-flops is a memory element that can store one bit information. There are many types of flip-flops like D flip-flop, SR flip-flop, JK flip-flop, etc. So number 2 is counters. So what is counter? Counter is a sequential circuit that counts the numbers. If we take an example of decimal counter, there we have a 1 to 9. They count the 1 from to the 9. So if we give to the 1 input, it is stored on the memory element, that is flip-flop. Whenever we give input next time 1, so it stores the previous one and plus them next input. That makes it 2. And we have a saved 2 values, and next time when we give an input, so it plus the previous output, that is 2 plus 1 is 3. So similarly, they count from 1 to 9. So shift registers are the registers that also used in a CPU. So this is the block diagram of sequential circuit, where we can say where we can see there's the input variables and output variables. So in which we can see this a combination circuit. When we give input, it goes to the memory element, and memory elements get back to the combination circuit that also called a feedback. It gives us a return the value. As I said that counter, if we give input 1, it goes to the memory element and save there. And whenever we give in another input that 1, so it gets the from the memory element where we have saved it 1 value and plus them, so it makes 2. Similarly, it goes from 1 to 9. Types of sequential circuit. So there are basically two types of sequential circuit. Number one is synchronous circuit. What is synchronous circuit? In synchronous sequential circuits, the state of device changes only at discrete times in response to clock pulse. And there's another sequential circuit that is asynchronous circuit. A synchronous circuit is not synchronized by a clock signal. The output of the circuit changes directly in response to change in input. Topic number 3, that is multiprocessor. So what is a multiprocessor? A multiprocessor system is an interconnection of two or more CPUs with memory and input-output QMAN. So a multiprocessor system is called a multiprocessor system where we have a multiple processors, means more than one processor. Multiprocessors are classified as multiple instruction stream, multiple data streams, MIMG systems. So why should we choose a multiprocessor? So there are some advantages of to choose multiprocessor. Number one is performance. As we know that a single processor can take some multitasking, but when we have a multiprocessor, it also increases the performance of the system. Less cost, because you don't need to buy more than one computers. All just you need to buy more than one processor and install in the system. Multiple users. So it also an advantage of multiprocessors. Multiple applications. So multiple applications can run on the multiple processor. So it also increase the application performance as well. Multitasking. So when you have a multiprocessor, you can do a multiple tasks. Responsiveness and or through output that we will cover in this video later. Share hardware between CPUs. So when we buy a CPU in an existing system, then you don't have to buy separate peripheral devices like keyboard, mouse, etc. How multiprocessors are classified? Multiprocessors are classified by the way their memory is organized. Mainly, it classified into two types. So we classified a multiprocessor in two terms. That how they manage the main memory. Number one is tightly coupled multiprocessors. And number two is loosely coupled multiprocessor. So these are the types of the multiprocessor. Let's understand in details. Tightly coupled multiprocessor. A multiprocessor is tightly coupled computer system having two or more processing unit multiprocessor, each sharing main memory and peripheral in order to simultaneously process programs. So tightly coupled multiprocessor is a classified that is when we have a main memory that shares between the CPUs, and also we can share the peripheral devices that connects with the wires to the computer. So tightly coupled is all about share the main memory. Tightly coupled processor is also known as a shared memory system as well. Loosely coupled multiprocessor. Loosely coupled multiprocessor system often refers to the as clusters are based on multiple standalone single or dual processor commodity computers interconnect via high communication system. Loosely coupled multiprocessors is also known as distributed memory. So loosely coupled multiprocessors not share the memory. Every CPU has its own main memory. Interconnection structure. The physical form of establishing an interconnection network. Number one is time shared common bus. Number two, multi-port memory. Number three, cross-port switch. Let's understand in details. So what is time shared common bus? A system common bus multiprocessor system consists of a number of processors connected through path to the memory unit. So as you can see, the path that connects memory unit to CPU is called the time shared common bus. These white lines are called the time shared common bus, in which the 5 CPUs has connect to the one memory unit that is main memory. CPU 1, CPU 2, CPU 3, input output processor 1, input output processor 2. These all processors connect to the one memory, main memory. So the question arises in mind that if we have one task that which processor will gonna take that task and perform or execute it. So it depends on the structure of the computers. So there's a CPU1, CPU2, CPU3. So CPU1 has a higher CPU1 has a priority over the CPU2, while the CPU2 has a priority over the CPU3. Multi-core memory. A multi-core memory system employs separate buses between each memory module and each CPU. So there has a 3 CPU and there is a 3 memory modules. Every memory modules connected to the every CPU. As you can see, CPU1 memory modules connect, CPU2 has a memory 1 module connected, CPU3 has a memory module is connected. So every memory module has connected to the every CPU. So in this case, as I said earlier, that the CPU1 has a priority over the CPU2, CPU2 has a priority over the CPU3. So in this case, CPU3 has a less priority. Crossbar switch. So what is a crossbar switch? The crossbar switch organization consists of a number of cross points that are placed at intersection between processor bus and memory module bus. So as you can see, a white square line, that is a crossbar switch that connects to the CPU1 to the memory modules. Topic number 4, there is buses. What is buses? So a bus is an electrical path in which through data travel between CPU to memory and other components. So bus is nothing but is a wire in which our data can travel around the motherboard to every component, from CPU to main memory, from main memory to other components like PCI slots, graphical card, graphics card, north bridge, south bridge, etc. Why is bus needed? The purpose of buses is to reduce the number of pathways needed for the communication between the components by carrying out all communication over single data channel. So the main purpose of bus is reduce the pathways of communication. So synchronization between components. So it also gives us a syncing capability or techniques. High speed transfer between CPU to main memory. So through the bus, main memory can talk to the CPU directly or CPU can talk to the main memory directly. What are the characteristics of bus? We measure the data transfer for two metrics. Number one is total number of bits we can transfer in parallel. This is called a width of the data. So it also important to understand that how much data can travel from the bus. So bus width also is a very important to understand. So it depends on the computer architecture that which type of system you have, whether you have a 32-bit system or 64-bit system. So bus width can be 8-bit, can be 16-bit, can be 32 or 64. In latest and modern CPUs have a 64-bit bus width. So number 2 is the clock rate of frequency in hertz of bus. So every component of the computer has a transfer speed and how to measure it. So in the case of bus, the transfer speed is measured in hertz. Each time data is sent or received is considered on a cycle. Types of buses. Number 1, data buses. They transfer the data between the components. Number 2 is address bus that holds the address. Number 3 is control bus that control all the buses, all the signals of buses. Data bus. It can thought as a highway on which data travels within the computer. So these are you can say that the main bus in which we transfer the data from the peripheral devices to the CPU, from peripheral devices to CPU to main memory. This one bus connects all the computer components to the CPU and the main memory. So all the components are connected with this bus and it connects to the CPU to the main memory. The data bus may consist of 60, 32, 64 or even more separate lines. So as I said earlier that bus width can be 16, 32 or 64. It depends on the what computer architecture you have. The number of lines being referred to is the width of the data bus because each line can carry only one bit at a time. The number of lines determine how many bits can be transferred at a time. So the bus line can hold the a single bus line can hold the one bit of information. Address bus. A collection of wires used to identify a particular location in main memory is called address bus. So this bus identifies the address of the data in a main memory. Or in other words, the information used to describe the memory location travel along the address bus. Number three, clearly the width of the address bus determines the maximum possible memory capacity of the system. The CPU sends address to a particular memory location and input-output ports. The address bus consists of 16, 20, 24 or more signal lines. Control bus. Because all the data and address lines are shared by all components, there must be a means of controlling their function. So as I said that the control bus is used to control all the buses and the signals. The control lines control the activity on the bus. So it also controls the activity of every bus. Control signals transmit both command and timing information among the modules. So it also controls the signals and commands of timing. The control bus carries signals that report the status of various devices. So this is all about my presentation. Thank you.